Okay, so we are here with Danelle. She's one of my past clients from InteGROW. She recently completed it, and I'm just going to ask her about what her experience was like, where she was before, and where she's at now. So, welcome, Danelle. First question is just tell us a little bit about where you were before InteGROW and what you were struggling with.
Before meeting you through social media in college, I started in with my first eating disorder of bulimia. And it really stemmed from the relationship that I was in. And so once that relationship ended, I then turned into the obsession of working out 6, sometimes 7 days a week, sometimes multiple times a day to achieve my perfect body. And then going from diet to diet. And eventually it turned into a strong eating disorder of orexia. Orthorexia.
Orthorexia.
Yes, thank you. I can't talk. So, anyways, orthorexia, excuse me. And just trying the new latest trend of workout routines to eating plans to macronutrients, and it would work, and then it would just tumble and go flat and not achieve the results that I wanted, especially in between having kids and then not having any more kids, and putting all that work and effort into it to not achieve the goals that I wanted. And that put me at rock bottom. I was just so frustrated and asking the Lord to remove the thorn of this body image that I had. And He clearly was answering my prayer in the way that I wanted Him to. He was going in a different route. And
Yep.
it's funny how He works His ways and how they are
Yeah.
much higher than mine. But anywho, so that led me on a path of intuitive eating. I just found this random podcast about it. Then that started my journey of just having food freedom. But I still had this body image issue that was at the core of why I felt like I needed to be a certain size or be a certain weight or toned in a certain way. And so through God's sovereignty, I guess you could say, or divine intervention, I came across you in the social media world. And I think the first phone call we had was about how to better help digestion. And so then that led into like, well, why do I choose certain foods, or why do I still feel like I binge foods or crave things that I don't want to crave, which then led into InteGROW, and ta-da, I'm here. So
Yeah, see, you had a really long journey from where
mhm.
you started to how we ended up meeting and then where you ended up. So, what do you feel like for you were some of your biggest challenges? So, you had a history with an eating disorder, but what made you hit rock bottom?
I felt like I wasn't worthy. I felt like I didn't meet up to society's expectations. I felt like I had to be a certain size or look a certain way to be accepted or to find my worth. And I was depleted. Now that going through the courses, I wasn't getting my needs met. I was filling in my cup with junk that was only temporary fulfillment, or oh, what's the word I'm looking for? It just, I filled it up with junk. And then now I know what I need to put in my cup. And it's not diet
Yeah.
culture.
Yes. Getting that diet culture out of there. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
because that doesn't lead to like the longer term fulfillment. It's just
Right.
the just enough typically to keep you hooked in it, but
Hmm.
not enough to where you feel fulfilled, like you're constantly grasping for more.
Hmm. It's a
Yeah.
temporary solution that would fail me in the long run. And so I
Hmm.
was wanting a long-term solution that was bulletproof. Well, diet culture is not bulletproof because we've been doing this for hundreds of years and we're still doing the same thing with a new name to it. So,
Yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah. I love talking to you now because I'm like, yes, keep talking. Where do you feel like you are now? Like, what are some of the biggest wins and successes you experienced?
well, I'm not punishing myself with working out. If I have eaten something that is bad, I would in previous times go work out, do a hard hit workout to erase those calories. I don't do that anymore. I don't punish myself with working out. I have gentle movement that I enjoy, and if it's something that I don't enjoy, I stop what I'm doing and I go find something that I'm going to enjoy because we're putting healthier things in my cup. That's going to bring me um, satisfaction. So that's one of the things. The other thing is noticing why I might have a craving. Why do I feel like I need to go to food for comfort, or what is the need that is missed right now? And so, like for instance, yesterday, my husband goes to his men's disciple group, and I'm thinking of all the things I got to do. And plus, I'm the single parent trying to get my kids ready for bed, do the bath, the routines. And I'm stressing and I'm going to the closet and I'm starting to shove chocolate in my mouth. And I'm like, wait, no, I'm going to stop. And I'm going to say, what am I missing here? Why do I feel like I need to go hide in the closet and stuff my mouth full of yummy chocolate that I'm not enjoying at the moment? And it's like, well, I have all these things on my list that I need to do, but what is more of the eternal, or what is the earthly perspective, or demands or desires that I have? Spending time with my kids is more of this eternal perspective for me versus all the things on my to-do list. And it's like, okay, I'm going to put my priorities in order and I'm not going to stress out about it. It's time to put the chocolate down and go be with my kids and being present in the moment, and things will fall into place the way that they need to. So I guess to wrap that up is seeing what needs are not being met, and why am I going to food as a source of comfort, or that's going to bring me fulfillment in a short period of time, instead of what do I really, really need?
Yeah. And the best part about what you just said, I think, is that you started going like eating chocolate, but you didn't end it with shame,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you just paused and you got curious and you responded in a really great way. Because a lot of times what I see is like, okay, we start eating chocolate and then we start feeling guilty. So it's like, I already ruined my diet, so I might as well keep going. And it can turn into a binge. And for you, it was like, okay, I'm just
Mm-hmm.
going to pause and I'm going to get curious about what's going
Mm-hmm.
on. I'm going to meet the needs that need to be met, and then I'm going to move on.
Because the old
And
me would have been like, okay, how much calories did I just eat? Now, before I go to bed, I'll make sure that I go do that much of like a short hit workout or a boosting Pilates video so that I could cancel out those calories. Instead, it's like, no, okay, I know what's missing here. So here's what I need to do. And I can go to bed peacefully and not think about, oh my gosh, I just ate all that chocolate?
yeah. Yeah, so just a lot more peace. And
Mm-hmm.
the best part of that is that you do end up meeting your needs. And so, like you said, your cup ends up being much more full. So it's not that
Mm-hmm.
chocolate is permanently off limits. It's just I know I'm not meeting my needs right now, so how can I go meet my needs? And so many moms I see are just constantly struggling, like your head's just barely above water, barely getting your cup filled. And then we fill it with things because we're so desperate to be filled. We fill it with things that aren't gonna last, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that food is evil and that chocolate is bad. It's just that your priorities are how can I meet my needs right now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's
Yeah.
probably the biggest win that I came out of the courses is what needs are not being met. Not that my husband or my kids are failing in that. It's me communicating those needs and not leaving them in the guessing work of what does mom need. Mom is in a mood right now. But just communicating those needs so that we all, like, all of our cups are pouring into each other so that we're not lacking or we're not empty, that we're and not one person's completely full. It is just this continual cycle within the whole family, and we function better because we're communicating our needs together, which then also leads to a lot of the needs that I didn't get as a kid, and now I can give that to my kids, and it's healing for me in the process.
Oh, yeah. I think that that is so yeah, let's talk, 'cause I I totally agree with you because we've talked
Mhm.
a lot about some of the deeper wounds that you experienced from
Yeah.
your childhood and how that has carried over into adulthood about, like, continuing not to meet your needs and
Mhm.
how you felt like that wasn't just showing up in your health, actually, that was showing up in other ways.
Mhm.
And, yeah, now it's I think a lot of times as women, we grow up thinking that our needs are unimportant and that everybody
Mhm.
else should always come first. And one of the things I think you discovered was that actually my needs are important. And when I get those needs met, then I can be a better mom. I can be a better
Mhm.
wife. I can be a better sister, daughter. And so it's not at all selfish. And it actually helps in a lot of other ways.
And I think our culture too, it's we do this shift of we give all of ourselves and so we're depleted. And then the other side of society is saying, oh, all this self-care that you need. And then it swings to the opposite side of just self, 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 self. And it's just finding that healthy balance so that everyone can function as a team and just it's like a well-oiled machine. And let's not take it over here or on the complete opposite side of selfishness to selfless. And it's like, how can we bridge this together? Like, there's nothing wrong with self-care, but it's where is that intention going? And so
Mhm.
and the old me too was I was very selfish in my self-care of making sure that I got my workout done to making sure that I'm meeting my macro needs, my diet plan or whatever, that it would um, take attention away from my kids. A lot of time and energy was focused and fixated on that diet culture, and it took that time away from my kids. And it also took the emotional time away from my kids and my husband as well.
Yeah, and then that's another way almost the self-care in that way is still depleting at the same
Mhm.
time. Like we think, "Oh, this is gonna fill my cup and I need to take this time." But in some ways, when all of that's out of balance, like you said, and you swing almost to the opposite end of the pendulum, it's still not really self-care. Like to some
Mhm.
extent, it's still depleting because there's so many factors in health. And if all we focus on is exercise and nutrition, and then we're stressed out in every other area, like our health's gonna suffer. So we've got to figure out how to balance it all and
Mhm.
find some freedom in all of it. And that yields a lot better health outcomes and just a lot more peace
Mhm. Oh,
too.
yeah. And it's amazing the environment of your home. If there's no peace, your home is just chaos and it's not working together. But when peace is in the home, it's a lot happier, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, and I remember one thing you mentioned to me was because your son has had a lot of health issues, and that now that you feel like you're in a better, like you're just less stressed around food, and he
Mhm.
seems less stressed around food, that some of his issues have actually improved some.
Mhm. Oh, yeah. Like the willingness to try new foods. And even for my kids who don't have the health issues that he has, we're more willing to try things and not labeling it as bad or good food, but of is this food going to give me energy for today?
Yeah, I think that's so important. A lot of times people ask me like, "Oh, how do I get my kids to be intuitive eaters?" And it's like, well, you just need to become one, and they
Mhm.
will adopt what you do. And the opposite can also be true is if you're constantly dieting, those your kids will pick up on those habits as well. And but it's never too late. It's not parents are always like, "Oh, am I messing up my kids?" I'm like, "No, kids are great. They're adaptive. Like if they
Mhm.
see you heal, they'll pick up those habits very quickly."
They're really resilient more than we think.
Yes. Yeah. How do you feel like your overall life has changed?
Overall, I feel more at peace and I feel a lot happier because I'm not carrying this baggage with me. Um, Food and diet culture was just the symptom of what I was experiencing, and getting into the root reason why I was miserable, you know? And, we're not guaranteed this happy go lucky life. There's going to be, trials along the way. We've been guaranteed that since the fall. I was at my rock bottom and I knew that something needed to change. And it's like clearly everything that I'm doing is not working. Okay, God, what is your will? And so through all of this, I feel like I've been able to be in tune with what the spirit is teaching me. I'm being in tune to what my family needs, what I need, what my husband needs, and not making food and exercise an idol, because that's what it was. And my issue is there was just a lot of unmet needs as a kid that I didn't know that were being carried on as an adult. And I knew that I didn't want that same experience for my kids as well. And so not only has this transformed me in the way that I eat, in the way that I act on a daily basis, and I'm checking in with myself, I'm also setting up good habits for my kids. It's also caused me to pause and be more patient with myself, be more patient with my kids. When I am impatient, I start to become into a fight or flight mode. And so, how do I get myself back to the present reality so I don't go back in the closet and start shoving things in my mouth or binge on social media or binge on videos or whatever, but just sitting with that situation so that I can move forward and not make this constant cycle of binging on whatever is not helping me. I'm
Yeah.
I'm covering up the situation. I may be helping the symptom, but I'm not getting to the root cause.
And that is, I think that's the biggest thing about diet culture or going on diets is a symptom, but it's also a way to cover up all the other symptoms that you're facing. Like typically we go on diets because there's some other deeper need that's been going unmet for a really long time. We're trying to grasp for control. But then also at the same time, the reason we yo-yo between diet and then on a diet, off a diet is because at some point, because we're not dealing with the deeper needs, the deeper wounds, we go to other surface level things like food, or even like I think you made a really good point about like pinching on videos and ways to just numb. And in
Mhm.
all those ways, it's going to show up in your relationship with food. It's going to show up in your relationship with body. It's going to show up in your relationship in health, in a lot of different ways. So a big piece, it's not just, intuitive eating isn't just food either, because you can turn that into a diet very quickly. It's so much deeper and about uncovering those deeper wounds around food and around unmet needs and also body image. Like I think that was one of the best things watching you grow was your body image journey, because a lot of times when people start intuitive eating, body image gets worse before it gets better because you're letting go, you're letting go of a lot of control and you're
Mhm.
letting go of like fixating on all these things, and that feels so scary. But watching you have this like incredible journey of really just perseverance, like I'm really struggling with my body image, but I know this is the right path and I'm gonna trust in God and I'm gonna keep moving forward. And you have just come so far. Like, it's not to say, I mean, I still will have an occasional body image day.
Mm-hmm.
It's not to say we get to the point where 100% of the time I feel fantastic in my body. That's not realistic because the enemy is always going to attack. But
Mm-hmm.
it's that in general, you feel a much greater sense of peace in your body. And then on top of that, you're not making a bunch of decisions from this deep place of change. Your needs always come above maybe the way, okay, I'm not having a great body image day, but my needs are still more important than the way I feel about my body right now.
Mm-hmm. And to be quite frank, I had one of those days yesterday, and it's like, why am I so defeated today about my body? And it's, again, I was stressed out about my list of things to do. And I was pushing it off during the day, and then I found myself in the closet with the chocolate, and it's like, okay, this is where the buck stops here. I'm meeting it face on. And it's just like, then it just dissipated. Like, we are allowed to have those days, like you said, because the enemy is real and he knows our sensitive spots. He knows how to just get in there and go to work. But we also have to combat it with truth, and we have to combat it with love, and we have to combat it with an eternal perspective as well. And everything that I was so fixated on yesterday was this earthly perspective instead of the eternal perspective. And it's just Romans 12, renew your mind so that you can see what's more pleasing and accepting to God. And it's like, why didn't I do this earlier today? But, we're still part of the fallen nature, and it's a process. It's where you're just a completely transformed person. That's the work of the spirit. But we still make these changes. It's also a lifelong change. It's not just going to be overnight or 6 months or a year. It is an everyday battle against fighting the flesh. I just wish yesterday I did it sooner than later, but I did it, and today is a new day.
Yes,
So,
exactly. Exactly. It didn't carry on into multiple days
mhm.
and then, screw it, I'm just gonna go on a diet
Yep.
because that's the only way. That's the
Yep.
only way I know how to deal with this at this point. And
Tomorrow I'm
I
cutting
think you
out
make a
sugar.
good point. Yeah, and that's how, and it is like really what I see happen is exactly what happened to you and what happens to everybody, which is when our needs kind of go unmet or we're facing a big emotional stress. For a lot of people, that is when I see women have the worst body image days, is when
Hmm.
emotionally there's a lot going on because subconsciously our brain's coping mechanism is to find control. Well, what are you used to controlling body? And so it's something we discussed of like, oh, why around my period do I have worse body image days? And so we talked a lot about cycle syncing and hormones and
Hmm.
things, but part of that's just that um, we have different needs around that time. Emotionally, we're more sensitive. It's normal to have worse body image days. And I think you did it perfectly when you realize that one of the reasons I'm having this bad body image days actually has nothing to do with my body and everything to do with the fact that I'm really stressed. And that is meeting the need. So
Hmm.
when you discover this isn't about my body, it's about stress, I'm going to meet that need versus saying, I'm stressed, but I don't know how to cope with the stress. So I'm going to go after control and I'm going to try to control my body and I'm going to start another diet. You're never meeting the need.
Hmm.
Like you're never getting to the root. And so you're never, like, it's never going to feel better long term versus being okay with having bad body image days, but going to the thing that will actually help, not the thing that is going to help that's going to make you feel secure for a moment, but never long term.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
could say I'm a recovering type A person. Like,
Yes.
that are not, I have to do it all, or things have to be perfect, the type A OCD tendencies. Like that has changed. And my husband's like, oh, okay, we can relax now.
I agree with you. I always say I am also recovering perfectionist because it's like those are tendencies that I think to some extent we always kind of hold on to a little bit. And like you said, it's
Mhm.
an ongoing thing. But yeah, it's like a breath of fresh air when you can just start to release all this pressure. And I think a lot of that is because of finding a deeper worth and identity in Christ. Before it could have been, I get my worth from a clean house. I get my worth from being a perfect mom. I
Mm.
get my worth from having a perfect body. And when you can release all of that, you quit looking to the world to tell you, how do you be mom? How do you take care of your body? How do you keep a home? And it's you go to God to tell you those things, not the world. And when you go to God for those things, it's like, okay, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's like, okay, I don't have to prove my worth with all of these things. I can relax.
Hmm. And I even had some friends tell me this was like one of my best friends now. We met in 2014. So that's, golly, almost 9 years ago. And she's like, yeah, I thought you were super intimidating. And I'm like, I don't want to be that person. But at that point in my life that I carried for so long because I had to have my ducks lined up in a row. And that's what I was taught as a kid, by being adult too early, is all my ducks had to be lined up in a row to find my worth or to feel
Hmm.
loved or appreciated. And that's not it anymore. That's not where my worth comes from. So
So, is there anything else that you feel like you want to share?
um most importantly, I'm just so thankful that I can communicate with myself and find out the needs. Like I'm getting to the root issue instead of covering up with the symptom. Um, but as a bonus is like, I'm enjoying my periods now. Like before, I had terrible period cycles. It just heavy bleeding, like 7 days. Uh, and I won't go into detail because that's just TMI, but it's just like it was not fun. And then leading up to it of just the emotional roller coaster, just that hormonal surge of like, oh, her time of the month is gonna come. Better watch out. But now, like going through the cycle syncing and just seeing, more importantly, what my body is craving during those weeks, or am I craving more foods or less foods? Like I am in tune with what my body desires that's going to give me the energy I need for today. But with listening to that and implementing that cycle syncing, my periods, they're a lot better, less symptoms. The week leading up to it, I'm not depleted. I'm not in the closet stuffing my face with whatever I can get my hands on. It's like, oh, my cycle showed up today. Okay. It's just like any other day. And it's not, oh, the time of month has arrived. You better watch out. Like it's a night and day difference. And it's like, okay, this is pretty tolerable. Yeah, I would say that like that was just the extra icing on the cake.
Uh-huh.
That's not what I was going for. What I was going for is I'm tired of being in this hole of tearing myself apart and degrading myself and beating myself up because I want to do these things, but I'm doing the things that I don't want to do. And I'm in this cycle that I just can't get off. And I'm miserable. Everyone else is miserable around me. Getting the tools that I needed so that I could find the problem with God. Because without God, it's not possible. But getting to the
Mhm.
root problem, plucking it out. It might be 20 feet down deep, maybe more. But man, he got it down. And And it just was, it's freedom. It not only is it food freedom, but it's just freedom of the baggage and the stuff that I've been carrying for so long. And I don't want to hand that over to my kids. They don't deserve it. I don't want to hand it to my husband. He doesn't deserve it, you know? So, and it's also helped my husband too with his intuitive eating as well. And so having healthy conversations around food, having healthy conversations around why we do the things that we want to do, why we do the things that we don't want to do. Healing in my life, healing in my marriage, healing in my relationship with my kids. Like, I'm just so glad I said yes.
That is so amazing. And there's a lot of things there that I think is really great. Like, number one, that you are on a continual journey. Like the
Mm-hmm.
fact that you're still, even after stopping, you're no longer have the same necessarily like accountability that you have anymore, or that you used to have, and yet you're still, how do I meet my needs? What is the root cause here? Like you're still using those tools long term. But then the other thing too is somehow, even though you're not doing everything perfectly according to diet culture, your hormones improved.
Right?
Which, which I do want to make a note of that. If anyone's listening, don't look up
Mm-hmm.
cycle syncing because there's cycle syncing diet.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
We learn how to do it in an intuitive way, which is very, very
Mm-hmm.
different than the diet culture way. Very, very
Mm-hmm.
different. So you can turn that into a diet, but
Yes.
learning how to do that intuitively is like this magic combination, when it comes to just a lot of things, like you said, because mood, PMS, all of those things improve, and our cycle is actually one of the best indicators of our female health.
Mm.
So if our cycle is, and there's less PMS, less mood swings, so normal have a little bit, but
Mm-hmm.
that's actually a really good indicator of our overall health, mentally, physically, even spiritually. And then the third thing is, I love that you said it's just like the peace in a lot of different ways, that it's not just about food and it's
Mm-hmm.
not even just about health. Like there's so much more tied in with it. And all of those things are just as important, if in some ways even more important, honestly, than
Mm-hmm.
food. Freedom.
For me, food was just the symptom. It wasn't the
Mm-hmm.
real culprit. It wasn't the enemy that I was making it out to be.
Yes.
Food
Yeah, that's so
was supposed to
amazing.
be good.
Yeah. Like it's okay. We can enjoy food.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, you have come such a long ways. And honestly, like 6 months is not that long. When you
No,
think
it's not.
about, like, I feel like I just met you yesterday still. It does not seem, it does not seem like it's been that long. And because when you think of your whole life, you think of
Mhm.
how long you've been struggling and how much more
Mhm.
life you have left to live. Like 6 months is such a short period. And so, yeah, just saying yes. I remember there being like, with everybody, there's a little bit of fear and a little bit of hesitation. And I
Mhm.
think a lot of that comes from, what if it fails? What if this turns out to be just another
Mhm.
diet? What if I end up in the exact same spot as I was before? But when you commit to saying yes and you showed up to the calls and you asked questions, and when things got really hard, you weren't afraid to be like, this sucks right now. Like, I'm struggling, Kirsten. I need your help. That's what makes all of the difference. So I'm so, so, so proud of you because you really persevered when things got hard, and it clearly has shown, and it has paid off, and really like quite a short amount of time with how much progress you've
Mhm.
made. Your husband was so supportive too, which was great.
He was. And at first he didn't understand it. And that's
Mm-hmm.
that's why I love him so much, because I feel like I just don't deserve him. Because when I was talking to him about it, because anything that we spend on, we talk about it just because we like Dave Ramsey. And if anything that's within a certain amount, we want to talk about, okay, I'm I'm using these means, but I think it's going to benefit me X, Y, and Z. And I didn't know what the future was going to entail. I thought I was just going to fix my food problem. Well, Fair warning, it's going to be more than just food. But and he's like, well, if this is going to help you with your body image and the food, yes, it's worth it. And so I was kind of scared about that. And just because, we don't make a whole bunch of money, but we are also not, living from paycheck to paycheck. But it's just like the investment, I thought it was just going to fix my food problem, but it just opened up everything else. Just what I was lacking here, making my spiritual walk even stronger and just trusting the Lord, because to make changes and not knowing the future is scary, and being
Mm-hmm.
vulnerable, and
Yes.
also being honest with myself. I think that was the biggest thing, was being honest with myself.
There's a fear of the unknown. There's a fear of vulnerability and admitting like I don't want to stay here, basically. Is
Hmm.
that where you feel like what was the honesty for you?
Why I hated myself so much. And that's a really strong word, because I didn't like myself. I didn't like myself from a characteristic standpoint. From the outside, I looked totally fine. But in the inside, there was just something inside me that I couldn't stand myself. I'm like thinking, I could do better. I could be better, but I don't know how, because I was just carrying all that cobweb inside that I had just been locked up for a long time. And I didn't want my baggage to be shown or to be exposed or to be freed.
Mm, like coming, meeting it all at face value and saying, this is what I'm struggling with.
Hmm.
Here are my skeletons, and here's how I'm going to move forward and
Hmm.
heal all of these things. Because really, what you said yes to was, despite all this fear and despite um,
Oh, sorry.
me
Read that?
having things I need to work through,
That was like 30 minutes.
that's okay. Despite having things that I to work through, I deserve to heal. Like I
Hmm.
am worthy of healing, and that is important, not just for myself, but for my family and for a lot of other things in my life.
And one of the rabbit
Yeah.
trails that I went off of is, my husband being supportive. He didn't understand, because he's not experienced what I've gone through. And now he does understand, and it's being vulnerable with him, because we're communicating better. And that, I think that's what has strengthened our marriage, and that as well. So it is very, very helpful when you have someone who's supporting you on the same team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That is like one of the biggest questions that I get a lot is, how do I explain this to my husband? In general, men don't tend to struggle in this area as much. It doesn't mean that men don't, and it doesn't mean there aren't men out there that aren't struggling, but there's a lot of cases where in the man's eyes, it's just a matter of like, well, just eat healthy or just eat normal or
Let me fix
like
it
it
for you.
seems so, yeah, or let me fix it for you. Yes, it seems so black and white. And especially in the beginning, when there's a lot of internal work happening, I think
Hmm.
sometimes the man can be like, what's going on? Because they can't see, they don't know what was going on in your head before, and they don't necessarily know what's going on in your head during, but then they see that after.
Hmm.
And that's, I think, a lot of times for them where it comes full circle. But there is a period that I encourage all of you, like, you need to sit down and have a conversation with your husbands about, this is why I'm struggling, and this is what I'm struggling with, and this is how I need your support in this. And it's amazing because husbands are actually really receptive when you are open and they don't have to guess
Hmm.
about what it is that you need and things like that.
And sometimes I feel like you don't know the right words to say, because
Mm.
the clarity is not there yet. And so then, like you were saying, at the end of it, like, okay, that makes a whole lot of sense. You see the seed that has been planted and all the growing that's happening underneath the ground. And then once that and it produces what it's meant to be, it's like, okay, yeah, that's that inner working that I didn't see. Now I see the fruit of it.
And I think that's so cool because that's how, like, that just shows that you brought God on this journey, because that is so often how he works. There is so often where God will bring us on a journey and it just feels like, okay, the seed was planted and I've been watering and watering and watering and watering. And when am I going to get to harvest? But when you finally do, it's like, oh my gosh, this is the best harvest ever. Thank you, Lord. But like, that's so often how it works. And so the planting and the watering and the caring for is the hardest part, but when you look back and you see the harvest, it's like, this was so worth it. Whatever, and that goes for literally any journey that God can bring you on.
All I can say is just go for it, because there's nothing but going up from there. When you're just at your lowest of low and you feel like you've done everything, every diet, every workout, training type, whatever the case may be, and it's not getting anywhere. It's just a temporary solution. And it's all the inner work that needs to be done. So, and that is much more satisfying than dropping 1 or 2 pant sizes and then going right back to where you were, if not having to go buy a bigger pant size.
Yeah.
So the yo-yo cycling is done. You're off the hamster wheel. You're freed.
Yes, yes. Getting off that hamster wheel, getting off the yo-yo dieting. Oh man, not drawing water from a well with a spoon. That's like my new favorite saying now.
That's a good analogy.
Yes, that's what it reminds me of, is drawing water from a well with a spoon, and it quenches your thirst. Like, dieting quenches your thirst just enough to keep you drawing water with a tiny spoon. And Jesus is over here like, I've got life-giving water. I don't know what you're doing. Drawing water with a spoon, but come get my life-giving water and it's going to be so much better and you won't be thirsty anymore.
Amen and amen.
Yes. Yeah, well, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to chat with me about all your wins and all your struggles and your journey through InteGROW and intuitive eating and body image, all with God. It was really great working with you and really great seeing your journey. It was awesome.
Well, it was well worth it, and I came out stronger. So that's, it's been a huge blessing. So, and continuing to work and continuing to heal and keep going.